Hey, Joe 200. Here we are again, Sunday night, November 17th,
Yep.
probably. Anyway, and we are covering week 13. So we only have one more week after this.
Oh, that's, you
Um,
guys should pat yourselves on the back. This is a good course. Hopefully, get out of life what you put into it. So hopefully you guys ate all the veggies and fruit that we put on the table every week, and yeah, it's been a pleasure to be your instructors in this class. And this is important stuff right now. We are dealing with this right now with my older brother, okay? Um, and even though when you're aware of it, the ability to stop it can be a little bit sketchy. Is that the right term?
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're talking about financial issues and we're talking about elder abuse this week. So one of the things that is a really great tool is a power of attorney for financial. So I want to talk about what that is, when you would use it, when you might need it, when you're going to wish you had it, if you didn't do it.
And what we did do is we got power of attorney. We control all of his brokerage accounts, and we've been doing that for a while, where we took his money, invested, but we got power of attorney of his bank account. He uses a credit union account, and so we've been watching his transactions. And I was able to call him and say, Tim, I think somebody stole your
So your ATM card.
ATM card because you've been taking out loads of money that are not normal.
They hadn't, just somebody was financially abusing him.
And so he ended up, there was somebody, a woman, that was, convincing him to throw thousands of dollars at her. So
Anyway,
anyways,
so
that's our
a
story.
power of attorney is a legal document that allows you to give the power to someone else to conduct financial transactions for you. And it can be very broad or very limited. So, for example, if John and I wanted to buy a house, but I had to travel for work and I couldn't be here locally, I might give John power of attorney to sign any documents that were necessary to complete the purchase of that house.
What about if Lucy
Um,
wanted power of attorney?
yes.
So she says, can somebody please do the power of attorney for food?
Yes, she needs a power of attorney for food every day. So anyway, so you can give someone a very limited time duration. I'm giving you a power of attorney just for this purpose. When I was managing my dad's estate, his estate was in Louisiana. I'm out here. He had two properties that needed to be sold. So I gave the probate attorney power of attorney because in Louisiana, their closing process when you sell property is very much more formal than our process out here. So a representative of the property has to actually go to an office and sign documents the day that you close escrow. So I gave that to him and he was able to sign those documents for me instead of me having to fly back there and do it personally.
Awesome. A lot of
So
different ways that this is
yeah,
valuable.
so it can be very helpful. Another place where we use power of attorney is with older adults who may not have the cognitive ability to manage their own finances. And that is one of the first symptoms that we see of dementia. When you start to see someone's credit score go down, someone's bills are getting paid late, that's oftentimes a sign that they are having trouble managing their own affairs, taking care of themselves, and often it's because of a cognitive decline. So when that happens, it can be very helpful for someone, family, friend, partner, spouse, child, whatever, to have a power of attorney for financial purposes so that they can take over and pay that person's bills, like we do for John's brother Tim, and manage their accounts, etc. So it's a very easy document. You typically would want an attorney to draft this for you, but as a easier thing, for example, let's say you have someone who doesn't have a lot of assets. They don't own a home. Maybe they don't own a car. The car that they have isn't worth very much, but they have a bank account and they have bills to pay. So they're renting an apartment. You can go to their bank and the bank will have a form for you to sign that gives you power of attorney. So you take that person into the bank and the bank wants you to use their form. They don't want to have to deal with a million different power of attorney forms drafted by a million different attorneys, and they don't want to have to send everything through their legal department to see that it's valid. So you can get that power of attorney using a bank's document, so no legal fees, and that would give you the ability to pay that person's bills. Now, I prefer that option. When we went into John's brother's bank, he banks at a credit union, the woman behind the counter said, well, do you want to just be on the account? And I said, no, I don't recommend that. I'm an attorney. I don't recommend that. Obviously, he can trust us. But once you put someone else's name on your bank account, they can take 100% of the money and walk away, and you have no recourse. There's nothing you can do
Not that
about
I
it.
would do that, but it could happen. So
But
you just don't,
but you've given them part ownership, a full ownership of your account. If you give that person power of attorney and they take all of your money and walk away, they breached their duty as your agent, and you have legal recourse against them. They can be charged with financial elder abuse, so they can be charged with a crime. You could go to small claims court and get the money back. So you do have some recourse if someone who has a power of attorney abuses it.
Now you see right here that even you guys should be thinking about this, because
Yes.
before you know it, you're going to be making money, you're going to be busy, and you're going to have bills, and God forbid you get in an auto accident, you don't want to go into foreclosure and bankruptcy and all this stuff because you haven't been doing your bills. And this way, if you sign your parents, for example, to have power of attorney for you, then they can take over things seamlessly.
Yeah. So if you do choose someone to be a power of attorney, there's a couple, terms of art, legal terms of art that you have to understand. So first of all, you'll see power of attorney, abbreviated POA, and that's just a standard abbreviation. The person who is giving the other person the power is the principal. I'm the main person. I'm the person on the account. I'm the principal. And I'm giving that person to my agent. Just like I hire a real estate agent to help me buy a house, I give my power of attorney for financial purposes to John. So in our documents, John's number one. If he can't serve, my oldest son's number two, my youngest son's number three. So I have
And
layers
then
of
Lucy,
people.
Lucy comes after that.
Lucy would spend it all on toys. We know she cannot be trusted with money.
Lucy.
So and so just know those terms of art, that the agent is the person that you're giving the power to manage your financial affairs. Now they have a duty of loyalty to you, and it's a very significant duty of loyalty, and so that is supposed to protect you. Does that mean that people who hold power of attorney never do anything bad? We see stories in the newspaper every day where celebrities have given power of attorney. Famous athletes, famous movie stars have given power of attorney to someone else, and that person has raided their bank accounts, raided their retirement accounts, sold, bought and sold things, opened up credit cards, bought expensive watches, and really run through a lot of money. So if you do have a situation, say in your family, let's say grandma or auntie can't pay their bills anymore and someone in the family is going to step up and take over, make sure that you have a second person who has eyes on those accounts, who looks at the monthly statements and gets alerts when a lot of money is moving, so that you can have a checkpoint, kind of a safety net to make sure no one's abusing those powers
Yeah,
of
so
attorney.
so if you have siblings, you could have multiple people watching over, grandmas. So your dad and your uncle, or your dad and your auntie can both be watching over it together. So
Sure. So, and like I said, the power of attorney can be very limited. So I only authorize you to sign documents to sell my car, or they can be very general and broad. So a lot of times the document that is the power of attorney will list 20 different things. So I authorize you to handle my insurance. I authorize you to handle my retirement accounts. I authorize you to handle my taxes. I authorize you to handle, my cars, my real estate, my bank accounts. And then usually,
that's Desi. That's the other one. That's the boy dog.
usually at the
He also
bottom,
wants food power of attorney.
it's not even anywhere close to their dinner time, just so in case you're worried about them, they're fine. So anyway, at the bottom of that whole laundry list of powers that you could give your agent is usually a box that says all of the above. So you're giving them broad powers that cover all of those things. Um, there's also different ways that you can set up the timing of when the power of attorney goes into effect. So there's a conventional power of attorney. So I'm going to go out of town. I sign a power of attorney for John. It's going to be in effect for a week or two, and then it expires. Or you might have a springing power of attorney. And a springing power of attorney springs into effect when I become incapacitated and I can't handle my own affairs anymore. So you would have to have a doctor or someone certify that you're incapacitated. What I like and what we have is a durable power of attorney. So that means that as of the date that I sign that form, it goes into effect, it stays into effect until I revoke it or I die. So that's, in my situation, I trust John, plus I handle most of the finances for the family. So I'm in and out of all the accounts all
I
the
wash the
time.
dishes.
He does a really good job. So I'm totally comfortable with having a durable power of attorney where John can act on my behalf, and it starts when I sign it, and it's good forever. But again, depending on your situation, you might want one that has a limited time period or a limited scope of what the person can do. When you choose your power of attorney for financial, we talked last week about choosing your power of attorney for health. It might be a different person. You might have one person that you think, oh, that person would be great in the hospital and dealing with doctors
But
and making health
not good with money.
decisions.
So
But maybe they're not very detail oriented. Maybe they're not as reliable with money. And so you might have a different family member who might be the best person to handle paying bills and staying on top of property taxes, mortgage payments, rent payments, car payments, insurance payments. And so that person's probably more likely to be someone who's good with numbers, good with details, good with computers, because a lot of this stuff happens online these days. And so it's not uncommon to have a different person have your power of attorney for financial than power of attorney for health. In my case, John has both for me, and I have both for him, and we have the same order of priority: older son, younger son.
that's because I have a PhD.
I trust you implicitly.
Okay.
So anyway, but choose someone that you trust, someone who's good with money, someone who's financially stable. If you have a relative like I do, who may or may not have a gambling problem, that's probably not the person you want to give your power of attorney to.
Oh, that's our dogs. Go.
I used to use a really great app called the Mint app, where it tracked every transaction, my credit cards, my bank accounts, and it was really great, but it went away. So now I'm exploring what other options might be good, but it's great if you can have an app that tracks all the bank accounts, the retirement accounts, the credit cards, so that someone can be watching to say, hey, wait a minute, Grandma just bought a $10,000 Rolex watch. That doesn't seem like her. Maybe we should check out what's happening with her credit card.
Exactly what we were doing with my brother.
Yeah. And
he had a couple of crazy restaurant expenses.
Yeah.
He's just a single guy living in a pretty basic part of town. All of a sudden, boom, $300.
Yeah. So we had to have a hard conversation with him.
Yeah.
I think he's experiencing some cognitive decline,
but he's a target because he's single and lonely
and a little bit gullible.
And so somebody took advantage.
Yeah, and so I think he's experiencing some cognitive decline. So we probably are on a little bit more high alert than we would be otherwise. But he's not at the point yet where we want to take everything away from him and not allow him to be independent. We don't want to do that yet, but we may get there.
But that hard conversation kind of was a wake up call for him to kind of be introspective and kind of look at, we laid it out. This is what's going on. It's gone on the last couple of months. And he was kind of like, oh yeah, I see that now.
Yeah. So we said, okay, buddy, if you keep spending at this rate, you're going to be homeless in like 4 years. So you probably don't want that to happen. How do you cancel it? You tear it up, you notify the person who's your agent. If you filled out a form with your bank, you fill out a new form, or you notify your bank that you're revoking the old form. I think if you're going to tear it up, fill out a new one naming a new person as agent. A court will always look at the date of the document, and whichever one is more recent, assuming that you had capacity to sign that document and understood what you were doing, that's the one that will go into effect. You can send a letter canceling it. If someone's been managing a lot of your accounts, you can notify all those accounts that you've canceled it. And like I said before, just remember that banks may require and financial institutions may require their own power of attorney form. Okay.
Our dogs are going 100 miles an hour. Aren't you, Lizzie? Okay. God. All right. There they go. Okay. Anyway, it's hilarious to watch, I swear.
It's that time of
night. This is
night.
just kind of some epidemiology about, I don't know if you were talking about this, but just how, people are concerned, and this is what
Yeah, okay. So this is actually really important. If you don't have a financial power of attorney for someone and then they become incapacitated, so you notice that your auntie or your uncle or your grandma is, Mima's not the way she used to be, and she's starting to have cognitive issues. She's in the early stages of Alzheimer's. If you don't get that power of attorney set in place, then at some point down the road, you may have to go into court and get a conservatorship over the person. That's expensive. You're going to have a doctor. You're going to have to pay a doctor to do an exam and fill out a big, long form. You're going to have to pay a lawyer most of the time to go into court and file all the documents for you. And it could cost anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000. It can be very expensive. It can be time consuming. It can be difficult. But you can get a power of attorney form in 30 minutes with not a whole lot of expense. So I do highly recommend it, especially, like I said, if you see someone who is at the age where you can say, okay, like with John's brother, you can say, okay, in a couple of years, I don't know if he's going to be able to manage things, completely on his own.
And he was aware. We told him we were going to, do power of attorney. He says, I really need your help. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So he realized his limitations and recognized our expertise. So
anyway,
but you see a lot of people are in a situation where they don't have any oversight, and it's troubling to them. So
yes, okay. So let's go back and look at our discussion, which is about elder abuse. And we have a center studying elder abuse at USC that has some really great information. Go back.
I got to move my hand there. I just went back.
And so a lot of what I'm going to be talking about initially is about elder abuse in the United States. I know a lot of students say, oh, I come from a country where elderly people are revered and respected and loved, and we don't have elder abuse. But towards the end of this conversation, we're going to talk about the World Health Organization data about elder abuse. And what we're seeing around the world is that elder abuse is happening in every country. No matter what the culture is, it's still happening. And we're seeing people that are sandwiched between maybe they're trying to raise kids, they're trying to take care of their parents, they're working a lot of hours in jobs, or maybe they're unsuccessful and they're depressed because they haven't been able to get good careers going. And so those caregivers are under a lot of stress and strain, and it can create a really negative situation that creates the possibility of elder abuse.
And if you take a financial hit, and suddenly you need money, people get desperate and do desperate things.
Yes. So in the U.S.,
here's your prompt right there, right?
Yes.
All right. So you look that over just about, if you've ever heard about it, if you've ever seen it, okay, and just read this prompt and take it seriously. Okay.
Okay. So scroll down. I'm going to show you some of the graphics from the USC Center on Elder Abuse. So when we look at how common elder abuse is in the U.S., about 1 in 10 people reported that they'd experienced some type of elder abuse in the last year. The most common type in the U.S. is financial abuse by a family member. It's easy. It's very easy for someone to say, well, I need money, and grandma would want to help me if she knew, that I needed money. So I'm just going to take a little bit, skim a little bit off the top. The next most common is neglect. The next most common is emotional abuse. So verbal abuse, telling someone nobody cares about you, nobody wants to be with you, nobody loves you. Physical abuse, fortunately, is much lower down. And sexual abuse is more common in an institutional setting. So in skilled nursing facilities, it might be sexual abuse by another patient who has dementia and is acting out, or sexual abuse by an employee.
What's neglect? Explain that to people.
Neglect is failing to care for that person, and it can be self-neglect, or it can be neglect by the person who is the caregiver. So we've seen certainly terrible cases where the vulnerable adult is unable to care for themselves, and they pay for a caregiver, or they have a family caregiver, and that caregiver doesn't give them food, doesn't give them their medicine.
They report back to the family that they're doing it, but they don't do it.
They don't change their diapers, they don't bathe them, they don't wash their clothes. And sometimes the authorities only find out after the person has passed
That's
away.
why I think it's important to trust no one.
Yeah. You
I mean,
need to
I'm
have,
overstating, but you really need to have oversight. Yeah,
yeah, you need to, what I call putting eyes on the person. Make
yeah,
sure you're putting eyes on that vulnerable adult. So scroll down a little bit. Oh, wait, no, we didn't talk about this. Um, in most cases, 90% of the time in the US, the abusers were family members. So who has access to an older adult if they're not in an institution? It's the children, the spouse, the partners, nieces, nephews, grandchildren have access to that older adult. So those are the people that are most likely to be in a trusted position, and they're most likely to commit elder abuse. Now, one of the most sad statistics is, remember I said 1 out of 10 reported that they'd been a victim of elder abuse. 93% of elder abuse is never reported.
it's
So the
because of
actual,
the shame and the
yeah,
stigma and everything.
the
So
actual numbers are much, much higher than the reported numbers. And there's a lot going into that. So you have a vulnerable older adult who relies on a family member for care, and they're afraid. If I report my son, if I report my son or my grandson's going to go to jail, then I'm not going to have anyone to care for me. And then the whole family's going to turn against me, and I'm ashamed. What's wrong with me that my family members treat me this way? Or they just think, well, maybe this is just the way it is. So there's a problem with underreporting. And we see also in terms of who's vulnerable that people with dementia, 47% of people with dementia have been mistreated by their caregivers. Why? It's hard dealing with people who have dementia. They're also what we would consider maybe unreliable reporters. So if they say so and so has been stealing from me, so and so has been hitting me, so and so has been yelling at me, and they tell a doctor or someone else that, they might think, oh, well, that's not believable because that person's confused. So if you're getting those kinds of reports from an older adult, even if they have cognitive deficits, try to look into it. Take everything seriously. My son's home from work, so the dogs are going berserk. You hear a lot of like panting and
running around
in the
and
background.
barking.
Yes, they're very happy to
We
see
have two
him.
dogs.
So
Two.
anyway, all righty. So elder self-neglect is associated with higher mortality. Any sort of confirmed elder abuse is associated with higher mortality. So if you have confirmed elder abuse, you're twice as likely to die in the next period of time. Suspected elder abuse, almost 1.4 times more likely to die. So it's associated with bad outcomes. And then I want to talk about the World Health Organization graphics. So they have some great graphics here explaining what the different types are. So physical abuse is pretty self-explanatory. Someone is hitting or pushing or, strangling or kicking the person, but it can also encompass inappropriately restraining the person. So you don't want the person to be able to get out and tell people what's happening, so you keep them tied up or locked up in their room. Psychological abuse, emotional abuse, we said that was one of the more common forms of elder abuse.
We had a friend recently who his sibling wouldn't let other people come visit, and it became a huge issue. So
yeah, so isolating the person, humiliating the person, controlling who they talk to. If you're trying to call grandma or auntie or uncle, and the person who answers the phone always says, well, they're sleeping or they can't talk to you right now or they don't want to talk to you right now, that should set off kind of a red flag signal for you that someone needs to go over there and check on them. And then, of course, we've got sexual abuse, financial exploitation, and neglect. Again, they're reaffirming worldwide, the World Health Organization says that it's often people in a position of trust. So either family members or healthcare workers who work in an assisted living facility or in a skilled nursing facility or even in a hospital. So what I think is really interesting is, what are the risk factors? What are the risk factors
you can read this, and we encourage you to read it right there.
Yeah. So what are the risk factors for being a victim, and what are the risk factors for being a perpetrator? So not surprisingly, having a significant disability or being in poor physical health means that you don't get out very much. It means that you have limited mobility, limited ability to defend yourself. So those are strong risk factors for elder abuse. Having some sort of mental health issue like depression is also a strong risk factor. If you're depressed, you may not be able or motivated to go seek out help. You may also be more likely to stay home and have limited contact with other people. Low income is also associated with elder abuse. Now, why is that? I always say, you know, my law school professor famously used to say, rich people get better stuff. So if I'm a wealthy person, I've got a cleaning lady, I've got a gardener, I've got a handyman that comes over.
Lots of eyes
Lots of eyes on me. My neighbor 2 doors down has a personal trainer that comes to his house a couple days a week. And so you might have someone who drives you to your doctor appointments. You might be ordering your groceries on Instacart. So you've got the Instacart driver coming to your house. And so all of a sudden you've got a lot of different things. Maybe you have the money to take an Uber to go to the movies, or maybe you have a bridge club or a poker club or something that you go to. So you've got all these extra people setting eyes on you. And if you show up with bruises or broken glasses or missing teeth or you know, anything suspicious, they're going to notice. So low income people may be more isolated socially, and they may have fewer people that are coming in and out of their homes that might notice something's wrong.
Awesome. Okay.
Okay. Now for the perpetrators, it's, you know, are you living with the person? Are you dependent upon them financially? Do you have a drug or alcohol problem? Do you have a mental health issue like depression? So, you know, sometimes the caregivers are living with grandma or aunt or uncle because they can't afford another place to live. And so they have this dependent relationship, but maybe they resent them and maybe they're frustrated because they'd love to have their own place, but it's not working out for them. And so keep an eye on those risk factors. So these are just some little blurbs from different experts in the field talking about why seniors are often victims of financial abuse, because seniors have retirement accounts, they have homes, they have a little bit more money in the bank. So they are targets, not just for family members, but even for strangers these days. There's a comment there about sexual abuse happening quite often in skilled nursing facilities. You know, because people are vulnerable there, and it may be another patient, it may be an employee.
And then we have cultural differences right here. You know, it's kind of neat to listen to the experts that uniquely monitor what happens in all these unique cultures.
Yeah. So if you are from a culture, and I have a lot of students who say to me, you know, I'm from this culture, and my culture loves the older people and we treasure them. If you're in that culture and that older person's being abused, they are going to be so ashamed, and it's going to be so hard for them to admit it because it goes against all of those cultural teachings.
And these are some legal things that you can do to help out. And then this final thing right here is, again, you have multiple layers, especially with finances. You know, and I know a lot of you guys are going to become financial planners, money managers. You're going to be fiduciaries. You're going to be honest. You're going to look out, and you'll look out for weird aspects of, say, maybe a family member trying to abuse it. But you know, flip that around. As a family member, you monitor the money manager as well. You know, we had a situation with my mom. We had a money manager doing really, really sketchy stuff, and so that's when we took over the finances.
And when we went into John's brother's credit union to get access to his financial accounts, the person we talked with immediately was like, well, I don't know about this. Can I talk to your brother alone? And we were like, yeah, sure. And then once we kind of explained to her, hey, he's been having some issues. He got a DUI. He wrecked his car for the second time in a year. You know, he totaled it for the second time in a year. So then she's like, oh, I see. Okay, I get it. So, you know, so then she was able to see that we were not family members that were trying to take his money. We were family members that were trying to make sure that he can pay his bills. So anyway, so let's talk a little bit about loneliness and isolation. When we talk about some of these dark subjects like elder abuse, sometimes I have students who say to me, well, we know what the problem is, but is there any solution? Is there anything that we can do to change this? And so I think that understanding the importance of avoiding isolation and addressing loneliness in seniors to avoid elder abuse is really important. So We know that loneliness is equal to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That's just an insane statistic.
That's the biggest risk factor sociologically for disease and death
and for
in the
dementia,
elderly.
and for dementia. So it increases your chances for dementia. It increases your chances for depression. It increases your chances for physical and mental decline. And a lot of things are associated with being isolated, being older, having significant health problems, not having family close by, which is really common in the US. We kind of grow up, we leave, we go to college, we go off and get jobs, and we scatter around the country. You know, I was trying to manage things for my dad towards the end of his life. He was back in Louisiana, and I'm out here in LA, and just doing everything long distance was hard. Being low income, so you may not have as many opportunities to have contact with people, and changing family structures. So we have yeah, my family.
You listen to my family, and you listen to her family. Okay,
Families aren't perfect.
The way families are portrayed in movies and television, we call it the Waltons. That's generational. That was way back when I was a kid. But you know, it's okay to have weird families,
Yeah.
and that's where we're at.
So we had, you know, marriages and divorces, and people weren't speaking to people, and the new spouse, you know.
She was the youngest, and then when her dad died, the executrix,
Yeah,
the
so I was
person
the
that was in
executor
control of the will,
because
and
I
it
was
blew the other one siblings out of the water because
I was the only one that got along with my
vindictive and
stepmom.
vengeful and
But anyway,
Anyways,
TMI. TMI. So anyway,
this is important right here.
What can we do to alleviate loneliness? So transportation is key. If you can't drive anymore, and at some point we're going to have to take the keys away from John's brother, and it's going to be really hard for him, then, you know, can you afford Uber and Lyft, or do you have in your community, which a lot of communities have, public transportation that's focused on seniors? So we've got to have better access to transportation so that seniors can get out and go to the doctor, get out and go to the store, get out and go to you know, the senior community center, and engage in activities and be around other people. We've got to integrate seniors into communities. So maybe communities where there's senior living facilities that are walking distance from a lot of different things, you know, movie theaters, the library, restaurants, things that they can do, and using technology. During the pandemic, we saw really negative data surrounding the mental and physical health effects of shutting down skilled nursing facilities and assisted living facilities. In terms of a lockdown, we were trying to keep seniors alive because they were very high risk for COVID, but not having family and friends come to visit them meant that dementia was progressing more rapidly. We had a higher death rate, and it wasn't great. But they did find that using technology, by having, you know, every facility having an iPad or some sort of device where you can video call or video chat with your family members.
Zoom was, nobody even knew about Zoom before the pandemic.
So being able to FaceTime, being able to even talk on the phone, being able to Zoom, those are all really great tools.
And, you know, you guys are always looking for something that will, you know, set you apart now as you're going on to your next level of becoming a professional or getting an extra degree. These are things that you can get active in, you know, this is something you can put on your resume to be mercenary, but also you can, you know, this is something socially significant that you can do to help people out. So I want you guys to think about that.
Next time you see the older members of your family, I did something really fun with my dad. John did it with his mom. I sat down with him at a time when he was starting to have cognitive decline, and he was having a lot of health issues, so he wasn't feeling very well, had COPD, he had lung cancer. But I sat down and said, I want to interview you and ask you questions about your life, because there's a lot of stuff that I don't know about it. And I said, you know, so where were you born? Where did you
take out your phone?
You can record it and make little short videos.
Videotape it, and then you're going to have something really important to show in terms of maintaining your family's culture and history with your kids and your grandkids. You'll have this archiving.
Yeah, so I'm really so glad I did it. And you know, where were you born? Where did you go to school? Where did you live next? What were your parents like? he lived on a farm and milked cows and did all this stuff. And so it was really cool to kind of march. And then, what happened when you graduated from high school? Then he went into the Army, and, how was that? And, so he completely lit up and was able to hold a conversation with me for really a couple of hours. So try this at Thanksgiving or Christmas. Try going around to some of your
what you
older
then use
people.
for your final paper, which is your
Yeah,
interview paper,
yeah,
but you'll actually record it for
yeah.
posterity.
All
Awesome.
righty. Well,
All right,
that's all I
guys.
got.
All right.
So
Peace. Hey,
the dog's
guess what?
happy.
We beat Nebraska. Okay.
Yay.
Awesome.
Go team.